Well, welcome to this demonstration of InterAcct's service maintenance software module. This is a typical main menu for InterAcct, and as you can see, we've got menu number 13, the service maintenance menu. It's an add-on software module in relation to InterAcct's job costing software system, which of course includes estimating and quotations. Now, the service maintenance menu, I'll just click and go into that now. It's useful for those companies that sell and or service capital equipment items that typically would have a serial number, type, make, model, serial number. And this getting started menu here, by the way, we can go and link in straight into service jobs and indeed clients, service style clients right on the main menu here. But this menu here is when we first get started, we can set up our own different types of equipment. Of course, you can have any number of equipment types. That's used later when you're creating client equipment registers and schedules underneath the client database. In the same relationship to equipment types, we've got makes, and we've got an example here, particular make, and this is all the different models under that particular make. And of course, you can have any number of models, and then for each model, which we're looking at here, you can break down typical service tasks that you might have as well. All right, in this case, we've got electrical checking and cleaning style tasks which involve parts and labour, and if we call up some of those, we can link straight into what were those parts required, and we can go drill down still further into that particular, in this case it's a dust filter, and we can go and link it straight into the stock item associated with that, where you can see it's got some costing information and sell prices as well. So this is the inventory database. So if you want to know more about InterAcct's stock control and inventory system, there's a special demonstration video just on that topic, as there is on job costing, of course. Alright, so this is part of the setup. So we're setting up types, makes, models, and then for each model, what sort of service jobs would we typically do, and for those service tasks, what labour would be required, and what spare parts would be required. And it's just part of the setup, if you like. We're going to use all that later when we get into a client file. You can also set up standard faults if you want to do fault analysis in the system of how many service calls registered with a certain type of fault, and also what caused that fault. So these tables you can set up yourself. If you don't need them, we'll take them off the menu display. It's quite simple. Also here we're seeing on the service maintenance record are all the job cost transactions, including timesheets, and then reserving stock that's required for a service job and issuing that stock, recovering sundry expenses such as freight and consumable items, if you like. We can be having our own equipment that we might be using in relation to service jobs charged out just like labour to the job, just as an alternative to an external hire. We have often the kitting option where you can set up a service kit, and that service kit could be a combination of both parts and labour, and possibly subcontractor charges, and even sundry costs. And so when you've got a kit, you can link a kit to a service job and then or do an auto issue of that kit to the job, just saving you the job of issuing from stores to the job of those materials. We have obviously sometimes subcontractors involved in the service work, and you can be raising works orders to give instructions to subcontractors, and also of course recording their claims under those works orders, which might include variations to contract. Here we're seeing the service invoicing or job invoicing side of things, and one popular form of invoicing is the auto draft invoicing. So basically, as you post accounting transactions, job cost transactions against a job, which I've just been saying, those sort of things might include timesheets, creditors' invoices, subcontractors' claims, stock issues, of course, sundry expense recovery, all those types of transactions that are hitting the job. You can basically every week or any number of days, you can go to the system and say, based on those transactions, what should we invoice those jobs for? And it will actually create for you automatically pro forma invoices, which you can amend to suit yourself, and then of course just automatically print and update if you want to do that. Here we're seeing various job schedules where you can get a list of jobs by the one date and start date, and jobs by type and also by start date, due completion date. They're just basically lists of jobs. I'll just show you what those might look like. Just long lists of jobs. These ones all in work in progress, as you can see. And if we needed more information about the job, we can call any of these line items up just simply by clicking on the line number, or just selecting the line number from your numeric keypad, and that'll link you into the job and a client wherever else you want to go. Okay, so we've got all these different job schedules, including even jobs sorted by subcontractor that might be attached to a job. We can see equipment service style jobs as well, with expected start dates and serial numbers and those sorts of things. And we can also do things like serial number search. So you might be searching by make or model. So you might say, look, I want to see all the serial numbers in relation to Penta. And again, you can search on models there as well. And it does a search and it shows you all the serial numbers. In this case, the status is being sold, and it tells you who the client is, the date they were originally purchased, when they were sold, what warehouse they were sold out of if you've got that situation. And of course we can link into that, call it one of those entries, and we can link straight into the sales invoice that originally created that entry. And here we're actually seeing the sales invoice that related to selling equipment items. And if we go into the items that were sold and call it one of those, we can link into the actual serial numbers that were sold on this particular invoice. And here we can actually say such things as where are they located inside the client's office and what's the asset number that they've been allocated. Of course, we've got things like the warranty expiry date that can be added at this stage. And from this, underneath the sales invoices, which is where we are at the moment, it will automatically update that client's equipment schedules for you. You don't have to think, oh, I've got to remember to go and do that. It's just part of the systems integration will allow you to do that straight away. And of course, from here, once we've got an item like this, you can see a photo of it. We can link into that product item itself on the stock database. Here it is, once again, the stock database where we can see cost information. We can link and see when did we purchase that item, who and how many items we've got in stock and where they were sold. And we can see all the serial numbers and of that particular stock item. Here's a list of all the serial numbers again. Okay, so this is part of that system integration. We're looking at a stock item at the moment. We can see that this stock item has serial numbers. It says yes. It's brought up that menu, and then we can get a drill down, a complete tracking history of all the serial numbers that we've bought and sold and used and whatever in the history of that item. Okay, so I'm just escaping back now, back to where we did a search on serial numbers out of the service maintenance menu. We went into number 34. Here we can go and look at all the equipment used by a particular customer. We can search by customer by make and model, and that allows us to search out all the types, makes and models. We can also see service contracts. We can have a look at work that we're supposed to do by month and by day. We can have a look at contract summaries of what contracts we've got. In this case, we've got a couple of contracts and the week numbers in which we're going to be doing that work. And it's got the actual budget from the service contract, and then a series of columns here with the actual hours and labour costs and material costs, and then of course variance here. In this case, we haven't actually started any of these service jobs yet. They're scheduled for later on in the year. Alright, so that's just giving you a bit of an idea of, we can go and search on warranty expiry dates, all sorts of things. Now if we come back to the main menu, and this time we'll just go into the business names database, and I'll search on that particular customer we were looking at, which was Macquarie Shopping Centre. I'll call it that customer record. Here's the customer record, contact names, phone numbers, addresses, all sorts of stuff. And at the next menu we can actually add more contact names. We can have a list of all the contact names we've got. A free format notes file where you can cut and paste or just type in notes here. We can have any number of delivery or site locations where equipment is actually going to be installed. And if you call up a particular site location, here's one, Talavera Road. We can see purchase history by that site location, what items they've bought and what they paid for them, and what profit we generated from those items. We can also see a list of jobs that we've done at that particular location, so it keeps job history by site location, not only also by client, but by site location, because that site location could be sold on and the equipment in it may well stay with that particular site, regardless of the client. We can see a list of what gear is at that site in terms of type, make, model, serial number. Here's a list of equipment again, all at that site location. So with an integrated system, you can often see the same information under different areas. We saw that a moment ago when we were searching on serial numbers. We saw the same sort of information. Now down through here we can obviously add client jobs, and that's where we can see invoices that we've done for this client. We were there a moment ago. And we can go into the service maintenance menu, and this is where you can also set up more site locations. We just were there a moment ago. But you can set up your equipment contracts. Here we've got one particular contract on with full service history, which is one of the fields you can classify what type of service. You can set this up to suit yourself, obviously. What type of gear, in this case monitors. We've got an X date, a start date and an expiry date. We've also got a contract number, site address of course. We can have just some notes here as well if you need some more free format notes. Of course you've got that area we showed you a moment ago. The equipment that is actually at that site location and associated with this service contract here listed out here, and for each item of equipment we can set up what sort of service tasks are being done, as we saw a moment ago. And in this case we've got electrical checks and cleaning style checks and parts and labour and hours associated with those sorts of work. In fact, you can call it, if you want to go up, we're back into where we were a moment ago. We can drill down and see those parts, see what labour is required. In this case, cleaning, how long it's going to take. This is how the job estimate is created, by the way. Alright, so that's equipment schedule. You can set up the contract intervals, so you could be, under this particular service contract, be doing an annual service and a half-yearly, monthly, quarterly, whatever else, whatever service interval you want. And the system then on menu number 3 automatically creates a schedule based on that of what visits will be basically advanced dates of what visits will be required. And here you can go and adjust those visits. Now it's clever enough to work out that the 2nd of August was a Monday, so if it was, you put in the 1st, it would actually bring it up, see the 1st as being a Sunday, so it would actually bring it forward to the next day. And here we've got the 2 scheduled visits. If we had a few more years in terms of the expiry date, of course it would have quite a long list here, and you can amend that to suit yourself if you need to. But that's generated automatically by the system. You don't have to do anything if you don't want to. Then the next step is to automatically create a job invoice for all those service jobs, and it's just an automatic process. It will go through, look at all those particular dates, and of course create a service invoice automatically. Here's the service contract. You can see now the print layout of this contract. You can see it's got service details, equipment details. Can be personalised to suit yourself, obviously. Alright, so you can go in and view the service job. In this case here we've got the start date, equipment that's going to be serviced, and then we can link into the actual service job itself. Here's the actual service job, and you can see a list of equipment being serviced again. You link back into the equipment items. Alright, so the whole emphasis here is to set up a contract, link to that contract all the equipment that's being serviced. You can set up your service intervals and what type of service is being undertaken, and what parts will be required and what labour is required. And from that very simple data entry, it's going to create a service estimate, a budget if you will, with both labour hours and dollars and material dollars as well, for comparison to actual costs. The job that's relating to that service is created automatically for you, so don't have to think about that either. Alright, so you can go in and see the next scheduled service. You can see here we've got some annual services, both full and whatever. We can go in and see, view the service jobs. From there, we just saw that a moment ago. We can see a monthly summary. This is what we looked at before. For February 11 and August 10, here's the estimate. And of course, coming up will be the actual hours, actual labour costs, actual material costs, and what we've charged out actually on those work. And you can see again the variance. In this case, the variance is equivalent to the estimate. We can also control warranty claims, which are claims back on the original equipment supplier, and monitor that. And this is where you can enter those claims in against the supplier. It will create a debit note against the supplier typically. This is where we can link back to the service maintenance menu, which we were right at the start of this demonstration, so we can obviously change our tables and view job schedules and do job cost transactions right here, and of course go on and do any of the inquiries. Client charge rates, you can set up specific charge rates for different classes of labour for this client, and we can just go on and view the serial numbers that we've got for this client as well. So if you want to just check on who owns this serial number if you like. Alright, so that's all sitting underneath the client database. And so when we look at jobs, we've got a couple of jobs here. We've got a scheduled service job on the monitors, which we just looked at a moment. In this case, we've got a kit associated with this as well, a kit of standard components. We can go and view that kit, of course, here. And we've also got what we call a, go back the other way. We've also got a non-scheduled service job. In this case, we can actually nominate what's the serial number being searched, and it looks up the client file automatically. And here's a list of all this particular client's serial numbers. Once you nominate the serial number, it will bring in all this other information for you automatically from the client database. And then, of course, we'll update the service history file automatically for you on that particular item of equipment. Alright, so at this next menu we can see a financial summary, which is all the grand totals, and that can be further broken down by cost group, such as labour, materials, subcontractors, and then further broken down by individual cost items and indeed transactions. So again, the emphasis is on budget, actual and variance analysis, and total by cost group by cost item, so you can drill down and see where the variances are and what's causing them. You could do estimating if you wanted to, and quotations on a service style job. You can link into the stock item itself, or the actual plant and equipment item that was sold. And here's once again that stock item. It's just from the job. We can see a summary of the budget actual and variances on that job. A site checklist is where you can put in such details as security, storage, power, amenities, and indeed go on and start to do a OH&S risk profile on that particular job if you want to. Alright, well, it just gives you a bit of an idea. Of course, this is, if you want to know more about jobs, here we're in the transactions and processes menu, quite a big menu for the job, and you can, once again, you could be putting transactions in underneath the job if that's what you wanted to do. You can be sending letters, alerting yourself to various situations on the jobs, recording notes on the job, preparing work schedules and tasks to complete schedules. There's a document register. We can link to documents, whether they be photographs or Word documents or CAD drawings, those sorts of things. We do have a separate drawings database. We can have a tools lending library, a register of what tools have been issued to this job, and hopefully they'll be returned. We can record questions and queries from the client or the client's representative, such as their engineers, and what answers were given to those questions. All sorts of information here. Now, some of these menus certainly won't apply to all of our customers, and not surprisingly, we're asked, once we've explained what they're about, if they're not applicable to you, we just simply, to simplify the system, we remove those menus from the display. They're actually still there, but we don't want all these menus if they don't apply to you, obviously. Alright, so I'll just go back to the main menu. I'll just click on this little home button here, return to main menu. So look, I'm really just trying to give you a bit of an overview, a taste, if you will, for the service maintenance system. It's one of those areas which is quite often personalised. It may be that you want to have quite a detailed specification on each item of equipment, other than just type, make, model and serial number. And of course that's what we do sometimes do. Basically, with a relational database that InterAcct is based on, if you have extra fields of information that you particularly need, they can be very quickly and easily and inexpensively added to the database. And once on that database, of course, they can be used in your report designs.